This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. One of the cool things about having a studio kind of in the middle of the country is guys tend to drive through the area. We had Justin Hamner in before, we had Daryl Gleason in, and then also the Bass Tank is just up the road, which is why Bassmaster Opens EQ angler from Gunnersville, Alabama, Matt Adams, is in the Sooner State.
Wasn't coming for the weather. Was not coming for the weather. We definitely come for the Bass Tank.
You got such a raw deal on the weather. It has been like shorts and hoodie weather the whole year. And then like right as you started to come down, literally an Arctic blast.
I seem to have that effect with every place I go. So, I mean, whether it's fishing or traveling, I seem to bring.
And I'm sure you're good buddies with Austin Cranford. We'll get into that. We'll get into the Bassmaster Open EQs. We'll get into the new format of it. We'll get into the stuff that sucks to talk about, but I would imagine would probably have to either light a fire or make you go home and drink alone, which is first man out of the 2025 Bassmaster Elite Series season. But you also had 4 top 10s last year in your first year fishing the opens. I mean, you're only 9 into this thing, so we'll get into all that. But you're good buddies with Austin Cranford. That's kind of how I've gotten to know you a little bit. We've kind of most of our interactions have been on the water,
right? Positive,
but I would imagine he talked it up like, oh yeah, we'll go slam a quick 25. We'll go catch a couple 8s.
He did, and he lied to me. I'm not kidding you there. And he took me out in the cold weather, and we didn't catch crap yesterday. So. Caught some white bass but had a good time, but it's always fun being a boat.
I don't mind the cold weather. What I don't like is the first couple days of like really cold weather when your body isn't acclimated to it.
Yeah. You'd think that being from Illinois, just like you are, that would be used to it, but I've got soft being in the South. And when that first couple days comes, it's rough.
Like I said, you don't meet many people from Illinois. I guess Matt Steffen's up by Chicago, which I think, are we both from a part of Illinois that we consider Chicago a different state?
No, that is a different state. Chicago is not part of Illinois.
Cook County is not part of it. It runs Illinois, but it's not part of Illinois.
It absolutely runs.
I grew up in Macon County right there in central Illinois, and then you're just a bit further south of me is where you grew up.
Yeah, I was down the south end, but it's funny. You get south and everybody says Illinois. I'm like, there is no S on that. Yeah. So, and then, Chicago. No, not Chicago either. So
where did you grow up then?
Benton. Yeah, it's south end. It's kind of between Carbondale and Mount Vernon, right there on 57.
Yeah. Big deer hunting down there.
Big deer hunting.
Like that's the Falcon Lake of deer hunting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you go a little further north, you got the Golden Triangle up there in those counties. And yeah.
Did you hunt when you were in Illinois?
A little bit. I was more of a rod in my hand from an early age. So not a lot.
I was the same. Did you fish like Coffeen and all those power plant lakes that are
Lake Egypt?
Lake of Egypt. Yep.
That's a power plant
lake.
We
would always
there.
Start out there with the Assumption Bass Club in early March with that funky slot.
It does have a funky
it's
slot.
It's like you can keep like 4 under 12 and 2 over 16 or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's been a while since I've been there, but it's got some bigs in it. That power plant, it's got some bigs, especially early in the year.
So we also have this in kind of, like I said, I did a little bit of research because I should. That's what I do for the show. Right. But also a baseball player then. So is that what took you out of Illinois?
It did. I played 2 years of JUCO ball at Kaskaskia Community College in Centralia, and then ended up a little bit of time at Webster, a year at Webster, and then played for the Gateway Grizzlies in East St. Louis.
So is that like a AA, single A?
It's a Frontier League.
Okay.
So it's technically professional, but it's not associated with Major League Baseball.
But did you have like a billet family?
No, I drove. So
you
being
drove?
At Benton, it was only an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, that's still a sucky drive.
It's a terrible drive, especially through the neighborhood you had to go through to get there. So, but it was what it was.
Did you enjoy that? Like, I mean, you missed the
I miss the competition end, which is where bass fishing came in. Whenever you grow up in a competitive sport like that and it's taken away from you, and Father Time says you don't have any time left, you got to find something to continue to do it.
Did you go through that phase when you got back into like the tournament bass fishing, where like that's the only feeling that you have before like a big tournament is the same as like before you stepped out onto the field, to where you're like, holy cow, this is like not butterflies, but this is that like competitive drive.
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about roller coasters. They talk about skydiving. I'm number one. I am not doing that. But the bass fishing is what kind of re-sparked that for me. I mean, and I really found that this last year, especially in the opens. I made the comment at Okeechobee, like I never got that feeling from baseball. And it's a fact. I mean, just the handshaking and the excitement and, and there's also the lows that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point too. But that's the first time I'd really been able to find that since baseball.
Yeah, I kind of remember. So I played hockey, not good. I was a very good, but not talented hockey player, if that makes sense. Played juniors with the Billets and stuff like that. But I found once I started and got into this industry and fishing, like I thought that I like just loved hockey, but I did everything I needed to do. I did the workouts. I went to the practices, but it wasn't like 24/7 consumed with it to where someone's like, man, you work your ass off. And I'm like, well, I don't work at all. And it's that fishing thing. So once I 100%. Found the fishing, I mean, I transitioned with Jeffries kind of hiring me as an intern when I was still a senior at OU. As soon as I made that transition, I was like, you know what? I loved hockey, but like, I really love the industry and the fishing part of it. And I didn't realize that there was that difference. So.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, I would say a healthy obsession, sometimes maybe not so much on on the tackle end of things, but the healthy obsession, that I found last year, it rekindled kind of I watched every YouTube video there was to watch. Mm-hmm. And that's literally, it becomes obsession. It becomes a passion, and it's something that I really enjoyed.
So walk me through it. So Illinois, fished around Illinois, hunted around Illinois. How did you end up circuitous route to Alabama?
Well, I mean, there's some personal relationship end of that kind of forced the move to Alabama, and moved to Guntersville initially, and lived Guntersville Arab. Kind of got out of the bass fishing for a little bit. I was married at the time, and there were some things that needed fixed. Yeah. So I had to life.
You did sports, right? Like you willingly tried to make a living in youth sports.
Still doing it.
Dude, that sounds...
Still doing it.
You have to have like the patience of a saint to do that in 2025 to deal with youth sport. Isn't everyone like super specialized, and every parent's in it, and it's big money? And
yeah, I mean, you figure that you're combining the two things that people love most, kids and their money. So yeah, I'm asking for it in that profession, but we run travel and baseball, softball tournaments, and do some sports training, some recruiting, that kind of thing. And it's been really good. I mean, there's a lot of satisfaction in watching kids achieve their dreams that they may not do without the help and the guidance. Mm-hmm. So it's still there.
And then circle back and got back into bass fishing through, I mean, arguably some of the best team trails in the country.
Oh, without a doubt. And I tell people that. They said, well, how do you know that you're ready for the opens? Well, if you can compete in Alabama, the Coosa River Team Trail, Alabama Bass Trail, if you can compete in those, you can compete.
So we have obviously Nichols and Skeeter here. You go, there's the Texas Team Trail and stuff. But how cutthroat is that Alabama tournament scene? Because it seems like the two places that I would say are that take it like it's always game 7 are East Texas and that Central Alabama region.
Without a doubt. And I think that adds to the intrigue of and the excitement of the tournament fishing because, the stakes are heightened on every event. It doesn't matter if you're fishing a 30-boat tournament or you're fishing ABT that's got 225 in it. Everybody is, like you said, it is game 7 of the World Series, and it means something. There's a lot of bragging rights, but I think that's what makes you better as an angler too.
Yeah. Who are the best team guys that are going there right now? I mean, I remember we used to have Russ Lane on, Jamie Horton, those guys and stuff that are talking about it. But like, is there a team that's like running roughshod?
There's a couple of teams that really you don't, and I mean, I'd say you don't hear about it. I know these guys personally, but Tim Hurst and Mark McKeag, they're phenomenal. They are just, they don't do a lot of the bigger stuff. You're going to see them at Coosa River and the Alabama Bass Trail. But, you know, when you show up, you better catch them. Paul Davis and Josh Chappell. There's a lot of guys that don't get into the opens that absolutely could. And, you know, when you show up that you better be ready.
Are there still guys in Alabama that kind of, what I say, Todd Castledine it, where they are making a living, doing it regionally, doing some stuff in the industry on the side? Like, are there still guys that make a living primarily off of the team tournament stuff with that?
I mean, I would say that Hurst and McKeag, they do a really good job.
A couple
of that.
Dudes in Oklahoma that did that, and it's amazing the consistency with which, you know, not all the time, but you look back over the year and you're like, okay, like, you know, they averaged 40 grand a piece.
Yeah, I mean, they sleep in their own bed.
Fished 5 tournaments.
Yeah, and here we are traveling for 9 all over the place, you know. But no, Tim and Mark, Hurst McKeag, they do a really good job of that. They win a lot of money each year. They're always in the top and sleep in their own bed and work their job on Monday.
So what made you, at 39 years old, want to jump in the opens for year one? Like, just, I mean, had not fished an open before, had not done anything. At that,
I think it's a
level.
competition thing.
Okay.
I think at some point, you know, I actually looked at my daughter at one point and I said, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to feel like doing it when I'm 50. So I don't want to look back and say, well, should I have tried that? Could I have done that? You know, Coosa River, Alabama Bass Trail, the 2 main ones I fished, we experienced some team success, and I just kind of looked at it and said, hey, let's give this a go and see. Because I mean, I'd be lying if I sat here and told you that my dream was to fish the Elite Series. I have 2 other businesses, but I love competition. And there's no better competition than the opens. And that's what I was told. I met some really good people this last year, and I'm glad I did it.
I don't see how, and there's over 100 guys that could fish the open EQs with the all 9 the way it was last year if they weren't either completely financially independent or a small business owner. Like, if you're working, even if you have the most badass boss in the world, that's like 3.5 months off all over the country and all that. Like, I feel like there's a certain like sweet spot for guys to where they get to it. It's like you said, you kind of have your own 2 businesses. Right. You kind of set up and you're like, okay, I can go do this. And, you know, with what I do with BTL and stuff, but I look at guys who grind it out and have to drive 18 hours and be in the office Monday because they've taken that vacation or because their boss understands it and is letting them get off. To me, that is, I don't know how they do that.
I don't either, because I mean, you know how you feel on Monday when you get back from those tournaments. Like, I couldn't imagine having to get up and be back at work for 5 days. And the grind is real. I mean, you know, you hear guys talk about it. I heard it before I got in it. And I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. You're getting to, you know, look at what you're getting to do. No, it's rough. Mm-hmm. It is really tough.
You actually fish the last 2 years in the opens, and specifically last year, you'd fish more in the opens than you do on the Elite Series. The travel is actually more miles. It's the same number of tournaments, but there's 5 days of practice in the opens as opposed to 3 days of practice on the Elite Series. So you take 9 times 2, that's an extra 20 days. So then you also have to add an additional travel day on the end of that. So you're literally looking at an extra month of fishing just to qualify for the Elite Series, where it's actually less fishing.
Yeah, that adds that extra month you're talking about. I don't think people realize the difference in that. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was always a day early, leaving the day after, and you know, and the constant struggle of worrying about it. Is my stuff going to make it? Am I going to have a flat tire? And then you get there in the 5 days of practice. Man, I like the change, the 3 days.
Yeah.
I felt the 5 was too much. It just, because you feel obligated to be out there practicing, because I don't want to be the guy that, hey, I took time off and that's why I struggled on this event, so I'm going to practice 5 days. But in the same, you're exhausted by the time you get to the tournament. Number 1, number 2, everything's beat up. They find everything.
Did you find yourself as the year went on and you were climbing and maintaining in the Open EQ standings, knowing that they were taking the top 9 to the Elite Series this year, did you find yourself being like, I got to get my 5 full days on, I can't let a day pass? You're stressing out during practice more to
Absolutely.
Where the first you were doing stuff you wouldn't normally do to try to be more ready for those final 3-4 events?
Without a doubt. I mean, you look at it, and every waking moment could be, you know, you look at, well, if I get off the water an hour early here, what if that is that extra bite I get in the 2/3 days? I need it. and everything was so tight. I mean, to fish 9 events and see how tight it was, and you feel that going through it, especially after you get to the back half. I felt like I needed to constantly be on the water, and I think it worked to my detriment a little bit. I definitely think I pushed a little bit too much on that.
But don't you also feel in a way that was also a learning curve that you had to go through? And being your first year fishing for points on a tour like that, to where that's just a tough lesson that 99.9% of anglers go through before they take it to that next step.
Yeah, I think that if I could write a book about everything I learned, I don't know if we wouldn't run out of ink or pages first, because I learned so much.
Hit me with some of the highlights.
Well, I mean, number one, I think you learn a lot about yourself in the competition aspect. And I'd always been a guy that I'd swing for the fence. Like you can look at the results. It's a top 10 or it's a 50 or 60 place finish.
Yeah. You had 4 top 10s and 4 finishes below 60th.
Yeah.
And then the other one was like a 58.
And so it was either I was on them or I wasn't, because I was going to swing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem when the pressure started getting on a little bit, I started making decisions I wouldn't have made earlier in the year. And that was because of looking at the top 9. I wasn't worried about making a top 10 anymore. I started thinking about the Elite Series instead of living in the moment. And I feel like if I'd stayed in the moment more, the result would have been different.
Any specific instances where you wish you had?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know how it is as a competitor. You reflect back and you're just like, man, why did I do that? That's so stupid. Leech Lake day 1, I started off with 2 really good fish, and I kind of forced the smallmouth thing, and I knew something wasn't right. And, you go and you try to find the largemouth. My co-angler catches 2 3.5s on a frog behind me, which is normally a bait I have in my hand, and I was flipping, and then I run back out, and I just felt like I was constantly spinning that whole time. And the big one, though, was Martin, which, I mean, and that's an easy one to point out. That is not, by the way, I have people all the time. You're close to home. You were so close to making it. Martin is not why I didn't make the Elite Series. And that's the thing that people look at. Well, you were so close if you'd called him at Martin. There are so many opportunities throughout the year that I should have made better decisions, fished cleaner, done things different in practice. I mean, if you have a bad practice and you messed up your time in practice, as an angler, you know it. And a couple times I avoided that. Santee Cooper, if you look at my YouTube video, I did not feel good leaving practice. I felt like I wasted 3 days. But Martin, I'd been there in the fall. I'd fished ABT Classic. I knew what I should have been doing, and I kind of went to I've got to force the guys that are competing with me to beat me instead of me just going out and trying to win.
Yeah. And that was a rescheduled tournament originally for Hartwell. The Hurricane rescheduled it, put it on Lake Martin basically as soon as it was announced. No information, go out there. And it's I didn't fish that one. I dropped after Leech because I cashed, and I was like, holy cow, I recouped some expenses. Right. I'm done for the last 2 because I was out of it in the points. But it also seems like you made some really good decisions during the year too. Like just talking with Austin, he said there were numerous times he's like, when Matt figures it out, he's like, it seems to go down like quick for him, like roll up, set for the day. That was kind of when I talked to you for that first time on Ufolocs, kind of how it went down there. But just talking to him throughout the year, I mean, it seemed like it went down like that a couple times for you. Like you had some dream scenarios that played out where you were like, oh my God.
Well, and I'm going to kind of, okay. So when you come from Alabama and you're fishing Coast River, you're fishing ABT, and you see the guys on TV, you don't really know a lot of the guys, and you go to the first meeting and it's at Okeechobee.
Mm-hmm.
And you see guys in that room that you've watched make a living their entire life, Scott Martin, guys like that on his home lake. You kind of leave there going, okay, do I belong here? And my first 30 minutes at Okeechobee, which I found a little backwater area, I am not good with crowds. And if you're not good with crowds, Okeechobee is not the place you want to be.
No.
So I found a little backwater area, and I caught 25 pounds the first 30 minutes.
Oh my God.
To start. I mean, day one, just right off the bat, my poor co-angler was sandwiched between 2 reed heads, could only throw.
Did you know you were going to catch 25 pounds?
I made 2 casts in there 3 days before the tournament started, and I caught an 8 and a 6, and I left.
So it was literally like just a pond with giants in it.
Well, in the area I caught it was no bigger than a living room. It was literally a reed head in the middle and water, and they were spawning like all the way around the reed head. Yes, it was insane. And then as you kind of weaved in there was about a 5-acre pond in the back that I caught a big one out of. on the championship Saturday. But the start kind of got everything, I would say, kind of it calmed the voices a little bit.
Were you shaking like as it was going down?
It happened too fast. It happened so
Wait,
fast.
walk me through how 25 pounds, your first morning ever of it. So you knew that there was some fish there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you tell your co-angler, like, hey, it's probably going to go down?
Well, we had the cold front.
Okay.
And that cold front come in. So, you know how Florida strain are. You hear the horror stories. I hadn't fished Florida a lot other than I had some experience on Harris Chain with cold fronts. And so I knew that I don't see these fish leaving. And I didn't see the water getting muddy because of where it was. I didn't think that I figured it'd be filtered out.
Yeah.
So when we got in there, I told him, I said, look, this is going to suck for you for the first little bit because it's going to be really hard for you to make casts. And he was great about it. I mean, awesome. And he kind of sat between two big reed heads, and I was just thrown to an open area. And it happened pretty quick. I actually had a 6.5, almost 7 get stuck in a reed head, come out, and I boat flipped it, which
what
was
were you
not
throwing?
Rotating between two different color chatterbaits and Cinco.
Okay.
So I was throwing a black and blue jackhammer, and then
so it's not like you were scoping them off of beds like they were.
No.
Mm-mm.
No, and then I left there. I left them biting that day.
It was just box, 25 pounds.
Yep.
And no one else. No one tried to get in there. There were no other boats in there.
I could hear other boats. I couldn't even see them. That's how far back I was in that.
Dude, that's awesome.
I mean, I pushed my way through buckbrush and through reed heads, and really it was so windy. I don't know if you remember. I mean, we had a couple days that it was below down there.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to fish in a crowd, and I've got to get out of the wind a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I got lucky finding that. And when I found it, I could tell nobody had been in there because you could tell that my boat had been in. So coming back out, you're like, come on, please just move. You know, you're hoping the wind will move it back over. And when I got there for the tournament, you could tell nobody else had been in there. So I had high hopes for it.
Yeah, you had 27.4 on that first day. Scott had 33.2. Tucker Smith had 27.6. You had 27.4. Paul Marks had 26.7, and then Emil Wagner had 23.11. It's unbelievable. That's the first day of the open EQs. They fished the entire season, and Tucker, you, Marks, and Emil are second, third, fourth, and fifth, and we're players till the last cast of the season. First cast to last cast.
Yeah, those guys are a little more consistent through 9, but you know.
No, that's a wild story.
Yeah, it is. And then Santee was, I mean, I caught one almost 7, 1 6.5 with 30 minutes to go on day 2.
So were you struggling?
Day 1, I didn't. Day 1, Chad Grigsby and I were in the same area. He was on one side and I was on the other. And it was, you know, I kind of had a feeling a lot of guys were going to be scoping bedfish.
Yeah.
I mean, and that you just kind of knew the warm weather coming in, that's what was going to happen. And I picked up the trolling motor at noon, run all the way to Jack's Creek, which is a 20-minute run. It was blown out and there was current and it was muddy. I didn't get a good feel. I made 5 casts. I picked it up and I come back. And with 30 minutes to go, I caught a 7 and then another one about 6.5.
Dude, that was a tournament of haves or have-nots.
Oh,
like if you were on them, that's one of those tournaments where you look at your buddy and go, how the hell does everyone not have 20? And if you're not on them,
you're not close.
Like I remember I had a bad tournament there and I had 4 the first day. My co-angler had 15 pounds on 3, but I had 4 the first day. And I remember I was standing in line and I was standing next to another buddy of mine. He only had 2. We like looked at each other and he goes, I do not want to be here right now. And I said, neither do I. And it's like 23, 24, 22, 18. Oh, it was really tough out there. I'll have to make a comeback tomorrow. And then I'm up there with like 11. It was amazing to me how that place could fish. It's one of the best fisheries in the world. But man, if you were not on them or made the wrong decision, it was ghost town.
And practice was awful.
Yeah.
Like that was one where everybody, oh, you're sandbagging when I put my YouTube video out. Or I'm sorry, my Facebook video. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're sandbagging. You always say that. No, my practice, when I tell you I had 2 bites in the first 2 days of practice, that's not a joke. Like it was awful. And I got clued in on day 3 at the end. I was on a swim jig through just old nasty grass. And then it was too close to ramp. I'm like, well, I can't rely on this, but it at least gave me a clue. So I started going and looking for it, and it wasn't far from the ramp. I found what I was looking for, and first cast, I caught one almost 8, and I'm like, leaving it alone. And I made the mistake of the day before throwing at some trees on the outer half, looking to see if those fish set up on the trees would work their way back to spawn more, and caught one almost 10.
Good Lord.
And to say that I was a little frustrated by that.
Huh. What was your experience up north prior to this past
None.
year? So
I'd been to La Crosse one time.
I will say a statement. I want you to break it down on whether it's true or not. The easiest place to catch fish, the trickiest place to have success.
100%. No doubt. I made a comment about St. Clair. Great fishery.
Yeah.
I mean, a phenomenal. It was really kind of dumb, to be honest.
You had 18 and a quarter pounds a day and finished 130.
I know. And you go in, and that's another mistake. You look at some of the local stuff, and the opens guys are going to be a little bit better. Oh, they're a lot better. And
I think there's just more of them too.
They're everywhere.
Like you look at the local thing, and like I think I was looking at some tournaments, and then I made the mistake. I think there's like 17 boats in that one tournament.
Yeah.
So I'm like top 10 is 17 pounds. And then you go back and like up north, you have to look at historical weather data for when that tournament was.
Yep.
So it was blowing like 30 on that tournament that was there the week before, which I didn't realize. So, I mean, I was on 18 pounds and I was like, okay, we'll grind out a check here and then go hunt.
By the way, one thing, have you ever seen more boat traffic than on July 4th on Lake St. Clair?
So, rookie move for you to go out on that. I didn't even schedule the VRBO to start until after that. So we only did practice for like 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And then the first day on that Sunday, I only fished canals.
My stuff was so beat up. I mean, like I literally lost my graphs on day 2.
I heard it was disaster. Like it was like 6-footers all around the bay where he took out of just from boat traffic.
I mean, you're just riding them from one to the other, and you're like, why am I even doing this? But
I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Yeah, talk about learning up north.
So it's just so fun. And I'm gonna say, and I don't mean this to sound the wrong way, but I feel like if you're really good with your electronics, there's no easier place to compete than north. Just because I feel like they're a little bit behind what we are as far as electronics. And those fish up there, if you find out, not so much Leech didn't handle the pressure as well, but St. Clair was incredible. I mean, it was just, you find one, they'll eat your drop shot weight. They don't care. If you hit them in the head, they're going to eat it. And, now speaking of the north, La Crosse, I love La Crosse. That is probably my favorite fishery we went to all year. It's
Really?
a very much a river system, just like Guntersville. I mean, it's grass, it's frog, it's punch, it's swim jig. It just kind of made sense.
That surprises me.
I loved La Crosse.
I hate La Crosse.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess mine was easy that I knew I could catch a bag on a frog, so I never picked up another bait. I could have had one bait on my deck.
You finished 7th in that event.
And lost a mega on championship.
Do you think that maybe you did that because you were coming off of 103rd and a 58th and you were like, screwed, I'm going to go do what I want. You were fishing free again after you'd had an 8th and a 7th and you had the article with Bassmaster and now you're looking at the standings and you're in the top. Then you drop the 100th and you go to La Crosse instead of saying, okay, let's figure out how to put 13 pounds together and stay up there. You said, screw it, I'm going to go throw frog.
100%. I mean, the emotional roller coaster you ride from you're in 5th, then you're in 12th, then you're in 8th, and then you're in 14th, and the constant, the balance of emotions on the roller coaster. I think at that point, I was just kind of like, well, I know what I do, and I know what I do well. And if it's going to beat me, I'm going to go do what I do well, which is what I didn't do at Martin.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm kind of kicking myself. But La Crosse was, I mean, it was my favorite tournament all year. I mean, it's not like I had the biggest bags, but I got to put a frog in my hand, and that's all I threw.
And you had never been there before?
I went pre-practice, but
Okay.
And I had been up there before, yes, but only for 2 days, and I was on 9, so had seen it, but it's set up the way I like to fish.
So, are you working going forward into 2025 like on consistency, or are you working on staying more true to who you are and like, hey, I'm gonna top 10 half of them and I'm gonna struggle in half of them? Like what after a year and looking back on it are your kind of goals as an angler going into next year?
I've got to stop riding the roller coaster, and that's a term I use in relation to talking to parents in my other business with baseball and softball. Is don't ride the roller coaster with your kid. It's hard enough on them. I rode the emotional roller coaster of when it was high, it was high. When it was bad, it was bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like I made some poor decisions based on not just turning the page, resetting, and going to the next day. And I feel like this year I've got to do a better job of managing those emotions. Because Martin, I'm telling you, like Martin, for the last 2 hours, I felt emotions I've not felt before. Like I wanted to break everything I had and throw in the water. And I got a camera behind me and I'm going, I can't do that. I got to keep it PG. So I think that I'm in a better position. I think it all happened so fast because I didn't have expectations going into last year. Last year, God honest, as I sit here, I told my daughter, I said, I may be done by Logan Martin. We'll see what happens. Logan Martin's close to house. And at that point, look, I might be done with this. I don't know that I can compete at this level. And I think everything happened so fast. I don't know that mentally I was ready for that, which shows why those guys are so good that did make it. Because the mental grind is something that I've handled in athletics, but fishing is different. It's just different. And so I think the mental side of things is something I've thought a lot about. And hopefully we'll see. I mean, I'd like to sit here and tell you it's going to be better. I don't know until I get there.
Have you ever had one of those moments where you did break everything you wanted to?
Absolutely.
I've done it one time.
Absolutely.
One time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, and then you stop 5 minutes later and you're like, what in the world did I just do?
The coolest part was I did mine and didn't realize it, and Ike and Ellie saw it and then analyzed it afterwards and was like genuinely
rating
impressed.
it on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I was at
Getting a
Oneida.
9.5.
So I was at Oneida, and I was in the same position you were. It's getting towards the end of the year, and I was right there in the mix. And you, like I said, that you don't understand that pressure because you can't explain it to anyone there. But you're like, if you stop and think like, oh, this is what happens if I catch them today, then you're screwed. In my opinion, because now that's in the back of your head.
And that's part of those voices.
But I stopped out in front of the ramp, and I'd had a bad day, and I went whack, whack, whack on 3.5 pound smallies. And I mean, I went from super low to, oh my God, everything's still in front of me. The season's still in front of me. I can't believe this happened. I found one little rod. It was like a miracle. I was like, it's meant to be. So I told my co, I said, we're going in early. And I come in 7 minutes early. Well, Lawrence has this deal where occasionally it'll say time updated by GPS. And if it's lagging, the clock's not right. So I was looking at my Lawrence. I don't know how the hell this happened. It was 10 minutes off. So instead of coming in 7 minutes early, I came in 3 minutes late. And as I idled past the guy, he's like, look, he kind of looked, and I said, woo, I said, good day. And he goes, too bad you're 3 minutes late. And I said, don't mess with me like that, man. And he goes, no, I ain't kidding. And I'm like idling. I'm like, what? And I look down, and I'm like, I got 7 minutes. And I pull my phone out because I didn't look at my phone. And I was like, what in the heck is going on? And then it goes, time updated by GPS. Trolling motor, about 3 rods, a graph mount.
The stress and the pressure. I mean, it's hard to explain unless you've been there. And I know exactly what you're saying.
And I'm pretty easy going on the wall. Like I'm intense, but I'm not a breaker of things. I'm
a very emotionally high and emotionally low guy. I feel like mentally I do a pretty good job, at least until last year with bass fishing a little bit. Normally I do a pretty good job of mentally controlling it in my head, but I'm an emotional person.
Yeah.
And, even at lacrosse, I lost a 4 and won well over 5 on championship day. And the first thing that goes through your head is those are points for the Elite Series, and that might have been my shot at the Classic.
And what's weird is, so like you look at the guys who finish at the top, like Easton Fothergill, don't feel like he has big emotional swings.
No.
Cody Meyer, I don't think he has big emotional swing. Tucker Smith, he's never had to have an emotional swing because the guy's caught him every time since he's been 11 years old. I do not know Paul Marks that well. Everyone that I've talked to says he is
good dude,
fantastic. Emil Wagner, stone cold killer.
Yep.
I mean, the most unassuming guy, but dude, that guy, no big emotional. Andrew Loberg, same thing, exact same thing. He freaking rolls with those guys like Dakota. I mean, and I don't know Evan that well. And I've had Bo on the show, but I mean, dude, like, Jordan Lee mentality is kind of how I think all these young guys, like if you are molding their mental game from such a young age because of the high school and the college, and they're so young that I don't think I don't want to say this. I don't think they think about anything. I don't think it's an option for them to have a roller coaster.
That's right.
I think they go out and they catch them, and that's what they do, and they don't know any different.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
If they lose one, they'll get another bite.
And for me, I mean, I'll be honest. Like I'm 41 now.
Yeah.
I look
and I
at
just
it, I'm
turned
like,
40.
my time's running out. That's probably not the way I should look at it, but and I'm not saying it's any easier when you're 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. But I feel like, the older you get, the more you're kind of like, you've been there, you've seen it, you know how fast time goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, when am I going to have this opportunity again? And for those guys, that's just what they've always done. And boy, that's a good class going into the Elite Series too, by the way.
It's unreal.
They're strong, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's 8 checks every single Elite Series event.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not kidding. It is. And then, combine that with last year's of JT, John Garrett, Trey McKinney, Robert G., Tyler Williams, Wesley Gore, Logan Parks, Ben Milliken, and Kyle Patrick.
Strong.
That's 20% of the field that since 2006 to 2021, really you didn't have, they were just getting their feet wet and surviving.
Yeah.
That's 20% of the field that's going to cash a check, especially with these kind of new payouts. I mean, you're talking about 50% of the high-end checks will be taken by anglers
First couple years
who were not on the Elite Series in 2022.
I'll tell you while I'm thinking about it, going back to those guys. And I looked at Austin and I said, I watched Easton. We were around each other in practice at Eufaula. He's a freaking technician. That dude's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what I noticed about him. I saw him 3 days in practice. And you know how many casts I watched him make in 3 days of practice?
Probably none.
Not a single cast. Not one. For him to have that mental side of just, I've got a job to do. I'm going to grind. I'm going to grind on my graph. I'm going to grind on my trolling motor and put his time in like he did. Man, I'm telling you, that kid, he's special.
Cody's the ultimate professional too, Meyer.
Love Cody.
I fished around him for a couple days. Not many days because he finished in second night in the points. But,
yeah,
you're like, okay, I must have done, you notice who's around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's moments where you're
Absolutely.
like, I always wonder when people roll up and leave if they're like, Pangrak's over there, we gotta get the hell out of here. But dude, I have never seen anyone put his head down, put his buff up, his hat on, locked the hell in.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who's like, hey, what's up, man? Like, I have no problem chatting. I would much rather chat on the water.
That's what we did at Eufaula.
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
I'm the same way.
Cody is, and it's not, I mean, he's one of the nicest guys you would ever want to meet on.
Great guy.
Dude, locked the hell in on the water. Yeah. Like every cast, his life depends on it. It's unbelievable to watch him fish and then break down water where, especially when you're electronics wise, he doesn't do anything that's not intentional. Like that's I'm out there, if you look at my thing, I look like a friggin' drunken monkey on a tricycle, my trail. Yeah. I guarantee if you look at Cody's, it's gridded out.
Well, it's like, it's funny because talking to Scott over at Bass Tank, he said, yeah, Austin Cranford referred to you as a pinball. And I said, a pinball? And I talked to Cranford, and he's like, yeah. One moment you're up to the north end of the dam. The next moment I talk to you, you're on the south end in the grass. And the next moment you're flipping docks. And I think that's something, I think that's why those guys separate themselves. I mean, Cody's been doing it a long time. He's had success at every level. And like you said, use the word intentional. That's kind of what I was getting out with Easton. Those guys that are so intentional and they have a plan and they're going to execute that plan, those guys are good. Yeah. They just really are. And I think I have to do a better job of that. I'm kind of all over at times. So
I think that's a evolving as a professional angler in the tournament world, especially over the last 5 years. It is because of live scope. It is because there's a lot more guys that are spending a lot more time on the water at an earlier age when they qualify for, so they have more under their belt. But I think of like a Fred Rambanis or even like an Edwin. There used to be, and I've covered this since 2008, a lot more guys who would fish on feel. And I fished with Fred a lot to where we would run 8 miles on Grand and then he'd be like, we need to go back and fish that dock. And you're like, dude, we were just at the freaking dock, dude. Like, what the hell? And then he'd roll up and catch a 4-pounder. Yeah. But with the scope, it is because of live scope and because of a lot of the talent that is now there as finding fish, it's really hard to run around and pick off individuals when guys are building their bag with their lines in the water on the biggest and best quality of schools on the lake. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like you could get away with, oh yeah, I caught a 5-pounder, but then didn't get a bite for another 4 hours and then stuck a release fish on the way in and we're golden. But you've got a guy like Easton that starts with a 16-pound limit. And by the time you've plucked one and ran around and fished for an hour out of 3 hours, he's up to 24.
Oh, exactly. And that's kind of what was getting at with Leech. I felt like I wasted half my day. I felt like it's like, okay, this makes sense. Let me go spend some time here. And I did fish on fill a lot this last year. And that's something I feel like I was stuck a little bit between the scoping and the fill, because at my age, everything was fill. When I got back into it, everything started getting to scope and electronics. And I think I've caught up a lot. I'm not as good as a lot of guys, but I think that I've got to do a better job of head down, trolling motor down, rod in hand, and, got to figure out that balance between fill and scope.
Do you feel like it's a skill?
Oh, absolutely. What I call managing the voices. Like, because there's voices in your head as a fisherman. Mm-hmm. Like, what about this? What about that? Well, so-and-so caught him yesterday. You better catch him today. Oh, well, you fell yesterday. You need to catch that whole even keel of you've got a job to do every day. Do it to the best of your ability. Do what you're strong at. That's hard. It's a lot harder than people think it is.
Yeah. We're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we'll dive into 2025, some rule changes that are going on in the open EQs, kind of your thoughts on that. Opens EQ angler Matt Adams from Gunnersville.
Gunnersville.
The biggest, that like we were talking a little bit before off air, that thing is a monster.
It's insane. And it's been so good this year.
On average, how many boats per day would you say fish for bass educatedly on Lake Gunnersville?
I mean, if you're talking in the spring, a normal spring day,
yeah,
you're probably talking 1,000 tournament boats.
Like right now, like on a Wednesday at 9:13,
several hundred,
just fishing, and you still pump out ridiculous bags.
Yeah, it's insane.
Huh. All right, BTO on a Wednesday. We'll be back right after this. Pro Bass Adventures is reinventing Mexico bass fishing. With boats equipped with 12-inch Garmin units and LiveScope Plus, free loaner fishing rods, and no-cost airport transportation, Pro Bass Adventures is proudly putting you in the best position for success. Pro Bass Adventures has lodges on Lake Baccarat and Lake El Salto, Mexico's two best trophy largemouth bass lakes. Visit probassadventures.com or email probassadventures@gmail.com. The official Mexico fishing lodge of Bass Talk Live.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
This is Gamakatsu's new Nano Alpha line of hooks. If it looks familiar, that's because they are. It's the same shapes and sizes in the round bend and the EWG and in the new Horizon head that you know and love from Gamakatsu, but there are a couple new features with this Nano Alpha, which is this little green label that you see on the packaging. First off, 2 times faster hook penetration. That's because of the Nano Alpha smooth coating on it, and also it is 4 times more corrosion resistant. Check it out, Nano Alpha.
I've been using Sunline Shooter for the majority of my career. Millions of dollars made, lots of bass caught, and the gnarly, gnarly stuff. If you need a abrasion resistant, tough fishing line for the really, really mean stuff, Sunline Shooter is for you.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid. 100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the beat down double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the beat down.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
Welcome back, BT on a Wednesday, joined by Matt Adams. Your boat's done. It's actually sitting out in my driveway. You got that thing into Scott at the Bass Tank.
Yeah.
And what are you cool like walking through what all you had done to it?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I had some problems this last year, and I had to
A little bit closer to the mic. It could be fine. No one said anything. I'm a big fan. That arm could move, so you don't have to push it. There you go.
So last year I had some electronics issues, and so I got with Scott.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
Scott mentioned last night that you had,
and we
got
got
a couple things where he's like, he goes, I legitimately do not know how that was still functioning.
I got there, and and Scott and I talked, and I drive 10 hours to Iceland. It feels like right now to have it worked on. And Scott, first thing I started doing is pointing out where my problems were. And he literally looks at me and said, "Man, you're lucky your boat didn't catch on fire." And I said, "There's times I wish it would have, but no." And so he starts pulling stuff out. And I looked at him. I said, "My OCD's off the chain right now. There are wires everywhere." But what we did is added Pro Guide batteries.
Nice.
And
did you go 312s or 236s?
We went 236s.
That's what I got.
The 12 150 for the graph.
Uh-huh.
And I hear they're coming out with 36. It's supposed to be, or 16 in March.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a big deal. And then I added the 1643 in the front, which that thing's awesome.
It is.
People coming from a 12 to 16, I didn't realize the difference.
I had a 9 and was totally cool with that back in 2019. And then I went to the 10 and was like, "Oh, this is the deal." And then went to the 12 last year, and I'm going with the 16 as well. I'm getting it in this week and having Scott do it, but I'm taking off. I'm actually have less graphs on the boat. I'm only running 2 graphs up front, where it's for mapping, and 1 for forward facing sonar, and then a 12-inch in dash. That's it. 3 graphs, 1 on the actual bow, 1 for mapping, and then a 12 in the back. That's as simple as I can make it in 2025, I feel.
Yeah. And I mean, I started off last year. I had the triple beat down on the front with 2 Garmins and a 12 bird, and then a 15 Helix 15 in the dash. And I've kind of done what you're talking about.
Yeah, yours looks super clean. The beat down ultimate shorty double stack.
Man, that thing, I can shake my boat. I can grab the thing and shake the front of my boat.
Oh yeah.
It don't move.
That
thing, been able to turn it and move it. And I mean, I really like that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And,
I think this is my 4th year with them, and they don't mess around.
No, those things are really, those are the real
They
deal.
built didn't they build like a plate or something for Austin's?
I believe so. I didn't pay attention to it yesterday. I think they did.
The cool thing with Blake and the machine shop and that whole thing with beat down is like they can, like if something's, they can just go in there and make it and see how it works.
I got to talk to those guys at the Classic last year, kind of talking about some things I want to do a little bit different. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we can make that work.
Yeah.
We can do X, Y, and Z." So they can kind of fit the need. And that was really, that was cool.
You pay for what you get quality wise with
100%.
beat down. It is going to cost you more money to put a beat down on the front of your boat or on the console of your boat. You will not ever have an issue with it.
No, you're exactly.
And
right.
you can take it off and put it on the next boat that you have and the next boat that you have after that. Yep. So I'm a believer in it. Like I said, the best thing that I know you do a little bit of guiding.
Mm-hmm.
Crappie guiding ever?
I do a lot of crappie guiding. I'd rather guide crappie fishing, bass fishing. I love crappie fishing.
Dude, I'm borderline obsessed with it.
Yeah,
so
I'm
the best thing
that.
with that beat down, and hopefully gave you enough leeway there, is you screw that extension in, then you pop it up
Raise
to
it up.
36 inches, and then you've got your scope screen, and then that second screen, you put it level, right?
That's right.
Then you put your cover on it. Now you can hold your beer on it while you crappie fish.
Well, guiding, they don't like when you're drinking beer when you're guiding. I got to wait until I just do it by
fun,
myself.
fun
you know?
fishing.
Yeah,
That's what I do. I
have to be
use
a
it as
pocket
like
drinker when I'm
a
guiding, you know?
table,
That's right.
and I'll put with jigs, all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
up there. We should have gone. That's where Austin.
I didn't know you're such a big crappie guy.
Are you serious?
Dude, I'm telling you. I tell my guys, I've got a couple guys that guide for me. I tell them they have the bass trips. Give me the crappie.
Dude, that's all I want to do right now. I'm gonna, like I said,
we were talking about Gunnersville. You think it's good on bass? You ought to see the crappie coming out of that thing.
You should see the crappie coming out of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's a 308.
Big, and I had 3 over 3 out of Gunnersville last year. It's the first time I've had 3 over 3.
Yeah, they're freaking giants.
Giants.
Are you're scoping them?
Oh yeah, off stumps.
Yeah. Well, look where these are. Like I just posted that one. Watch this last one. Suckers.
They're up the top of the water column.
2.5 pounder.
That's wild.
41 degree water, 3 inches under the surface.
You caught the lost one. It
Oh
was
no.
lost.
No.
All of them like that.
Uh.
That's awesome.
Dude,
I'm catching them on like 4 and 5 inch Sakamata shads on Gunnersville at times. I mean, these crappie just choke them.
yeah, I just caught with Matt Steffen. It's on video. I
Mhm.
just caught a master angler out of a lake around here. Would not react to a crappie jig. Smoked a 5-inch Sakamata.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's probably why we can't catch those great big ones on crappie jigs.
Yeah. No, we need to chat after that.
Yeah.
I think that there is not a more passionate fan base than bass anglers who crappie fish in the off season.
I love it. And that's why when you ask, did you deer him? No, that's normally when my crappie fishing come in.
Yeah, I grew up fishing Shelbyville with my buddy Darren every
Got it on
winter.
Rend.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good crappie. Like it's got a lot. Oh, it's got giants in it, doesn't it?
No,
Rand?
it's not got giants.
Didn't someone
but
catch a giant out of Rend, like a freaking 4-pounder one time or
I think it's been
something?
a long time ago.
Yeah, like 15 years ago.
It's got a ton of fish in it.
Yeah.
I've got some buddies up there that still guide on. They actually own Mafia rods. They got a new crappie rod line out, and they tell me that it's just loaded.
Yeah, I carry 13 or a 12, 2 14s, and a 16 with bait casters. Tungsten bead. The tungsten bead is. Do you use the tungsten bead?
Mhm. We are freaking throwing 2 132nd ounce jigs, throwing it just like we would a Sakamata shad with. And with a
Oh,
7
see, no,
foot
this
rod.
isn't casting. This
Yeah.
is this is.
You're fishing like we did in Illinois with the long rods.
Yeah, but this is more. Think of it like punching mats in Florida.
No, don't take me to the good time.
That's
Like
how it
that's-
is.
yeah,
So
that's-
like, it's
Yeah.
heavy. I mean, these things are designed for it. You got this thing tucked under your arm and you feel it and you lean into it and you go, and it
Yeah.
just stops and the rod buries and then you get one chance to bring them into the boat.
I know when I was at Eufaula, I was looking at all the bushes. It reminded me a lot of Wren Lake. Because, I mean, you're taking
Yeah, it kinda does.
It's got all the buck brush,
Mhm.
a little bit dirtier water, not so much around the chute and all that, but the rest of the lake. And, I mean, that's the first thing I think of is 12 to 14-foot rod, slip cork down in the middle, pulling it straight. I mean, I missed that a little bit. I don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm doing Crappie Talk live this fall. Like it's a done deal.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's going to be focused. I guess those announcements going to be focused on. It's not with It's not for crappie guys, right?
Yeah.
It's for bass guys that want to up their crappie game in the off season using the stuff that they already use for bass. Because all of us have that right there. But I had a couple guys that showed me a couple little things, and you're like, oh my God, this has unlocked so many hours of enjoyment for me over the past 3 winters that everyone would. I've taken, I took Daryl Gleason, Matt Steffen. I just went with Chris Zaldane last week. And they all freaking lose their minds.
Yeah.
Like Frank Scalish is probably $1,000 in on stuff now. I brought him here last year, and all he wants to do is crappie fish now.
You guys got some really good lakes around here for crappie fishing too.
Yeah.
Really good ones.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by a couple in Alabama, and everybody talks about Weiss.
Yeah.
Weiss is not. I mean, it's kind of, they call it the crappie capital of the world. Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, Smith's got giants. Gunnersville's got giants.
Yeah.
Gunnersville is fun.
I've done a
does it.
little bit with Matt Lee when I did that documentary,
Mhm.
and his folks have I won't say it, it's the yacht club, but it's not like it's a nice yacht. It's a Gunnersville Yacht Club. You know where
That's
that
right.
is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for people here. I mean, it's not like, you don't have to have a collared shirt to get in there, but it's got those docks that you can't fish in the corners. And he's like, I've never crappie fished him. You want to try? And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
And it's you showed me the picture of the guy that caught the 11-pounder off those docks in Seabold.
Yep.
Oh, those things are loaded.
Yeah.
Loaded.
But you have to be on the dock to catch them because those things get so much pressure from that they literally know the little corners that they can get to.
The great thing about Gunnersville, though, is like nobody does it. We get out and it's just like bass fishing. You get out and you're fishing stumps on the main river channel. And you don't see another boat. You'll see the bass fishing boats everywhere. There won't be just a handful of crappie boats.
Here's what I need. I'm trying to make this happen. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that I've got industry sponsors on board because, it's hard to sell stuff in it. But if you are a bass angler who would be interested in learning more about crappie, send me an email, matt@basszone.com, that says, hey, just like Kyle did, he said, I'm here for Crappie Talk 25. Now, this does not replace any BTL shows. There will still be the exact same number of BTL shows. There'll be additional shows, just like we added 15 shows this past year for Guide Day. And, Frank is a day. We'll still have the same number of shows. So if it's not your cup of tea, just don't watch the damn show. But if that's something you'd be interested in, and if you follow me on social media or something, comment, let me know, hey, I'd be in for this. Like, I would enjoy watching this. That's something that I can take to potential sponsors because I'm very passionate about the crappie fishing.
I love it. Love it.
And it's very Michael Neal's done articles on this. He's big on it too. Jeremy Lawyer, huge guy in the Casey Scanlon, big guy in crop. All those guys. It is training wheels for live scope with bass.
Oh, 100%.
You get feedback.
I think
it's easier 90% of the time on bass than it is with those crappie.
I think that's what really helped me when I got back into it because I had that break in fishing. I get back in 18 and I was such a big crappie guy that's kind of where my live scope started. I started with the crappie first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's helped me catch up so fast in the bass world.
So get this. I don't think I've ever told this story before. So Bass Tank was this. I don't care. I'll say it was started by, John Sokup and all that. I was friends with him. I was working. He was getting into the crappie stuff at the time. This is 2017, 2018. I'm fishing the Toyotas in 2019 there. So at the end of 2018, they start this. They're kind of figuring out that they can do all this crappie stuff, right? So that's how I got to know like Zeke Anderson. I've had him on the show before. John took me fishing with Dylan Hackler, who's like a guide down in kind of southern Oklahoma on some really trophy bass or trophy crappie lakes. And they're I don't want to say pioneering, but they're the only guys in the state that are doing it this way. And they take me out and it like blows my mind. Like I catch my first 2-pound crappie. I've always been a crappie guy and I get obsessed with it. Like daylight to dark, figuring it out, finding different fisheries, different baits, hair, like the whole 9 yards. I remember having conversations with multiple people back then that would be like, I wonder if you could do this with bass. And at the time, like Scott Martin was doing it on Cumberland. Clark Wendlandt was doing a little bit of it. Jason Christie had already won on St. Clair with it, snapping the tube, but had been really quiet about it. No one was seeing, casting, putting it in front that it, and my thought had always, I'm not saying I'm the first one to do that. I'm just saying this is how the bass thing came about. This is 2018, 19 was, I wonder if you could take these long rods and drop on them on the Great Lakes, the smallmouth.
Probably could. And,
we decided bass swim around too much. Bass are in too much cover. Like you can't just, the crappie are the ones that float in open water that don't move. So you can get behind them and drop off. Like it wasn't a thing. Like even the jerk bait over the top of them. So dude, it wasn't until like 2 or 3 years later. I mean, we had conversations like let's go try to long rod bass like that. Like, I wonder if you could see a bass next to a stump and then take a 16-foot rod and like doodle sock them. Yeah. Like they used to back in the 19th. I don't know why like the wires didn't ever connect on that. Cause that would have been a full year of 19,
You know how much money you could have won if you'd have been the first one?
I used it. I won 20 grand at Cumberland in October of 2019, the month after I got it. And I would have blown that championship away if I had understood. So I was cranking a rock crawler, but I knew enough for the crappie to where if I saw a brush pile, I'd see something. And that's when I was pitching a pink worm all the time. And every day, all 3 days, I caught a big fish that I would just be like, that looks like a bass. And I'd cast to it. And I even have a video where I go, oh my gosh, he ate it right away. That was so cool. And then I put it down and pick a crankbait back up. Like, I mean, they were there for the taking.
Yeah. Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody doing it now.
But it's just amazing how that all, I mean, then what year would you say that all exploded? Really blew up? 2022.
22, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now if you don't do it, you're way behind.
Yep. Yeah, it's something. It's something. But you're going to get on the water with Scott later today?
Yeah. I think we're going to Wetumpka maybe.
Yeah. Let him get up there and just hit buttons. He's going to do this thing where he's going to try to stitch together the bottom so you get a harder return. And then he's going to go in and do all these settings that you won't have to worry about. And when it's done, you're going to be like, that's freaking crisp.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit in the back, let him do his thing.
100%. And then also on any of the stuff, I would highly recommend recording it. I don't know how savvy you are with that, but I'm not.
I'm solid. I've got a guy that we work together, and a guy named Jason Whitehead on Gunnersville. He's probably does more days than anybody else, and he's legit. Like he's one of those that I call up and go, hey, I got a problem. Help me out here. Well, FaceTime me. I'll help you out. So I'm not great with it, but I'm not bad.
I call Scott, and if I'm on the water, I'll say, you probably don't know Scott great, like for years and years. Yeah. No. So you'll get to a point where when you have an issue, you'll call him and you'll just go, I don't care why, just tell me what buttons I need.
That's right. Yeah. I don't need the explanation. Just fix it.
You know, I'm sitting up here at this and I need this to work. So like, which button on the right is it and how many times do I hit it?
Well, it was crazy because I've got the fish obsessed mount.
Yep.
Love it. Right. And he looked at the way that my transducer was set. And he said, no. Let's do this. Turns it down, adjusts it a little bit. And I'm like, I never would have thought to use it that way. So I'm like, I'm giddy to put it in the water and see the difference because I know there's a reason he did it. And so I'm excited about that.
It was cool. We do every time I told him we need to do this. We spend like a couple hours out there and then I'll pitch a bait out and we'll watch how it falls and where it falls. And we'll do different depths and we'll do that. And then we'll go into perspective and do it. And he will not get off the water until he feels like it is 100% dialed in.
Yeah. His attention to details is immaculate. Yep. It really is
a blessing and a curse.
No doubt.
Dude, that guy's got so much information in his brain on how this stuff works.
You know, if he wakes up in the middle of the night, that brain is not stopped. It's still going.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. If you guys have any electronics needs, they're really kind of ramping that back up as far as the install, getting it dialed in. A lot of great deals on the shop. Yeah. They don't mess around.
Like that was his crew, Scott and his crew. Like they knocked it out.
Yeah.
I've got some pictures I'll show you when we get done, but I took pictures. I'm like, my OCD is like, there's wires everywhere.
Yeah.
And he's told me, he said, just walk away from it.
Scott's going to be waiting for you at the lake. I do want to get one last thing before you go. So Division 1, not Division 2 next year.
Correct.
4 tournaments, and then hopefully the 3 EQs following that.
That is correct. Clarks Hill is in a couple weeks. And I hate to admit it, but
holy cow, that is in a couple weeks, isn't it?
I haven't watched the first video. I've been on Clarks Hill. We moved to Gunnersville, and I'm just hoping to kind of swing by the seat of my pants on that one and survive that one.
Nice.
Tom Bigby I've been on, Upper Chesapeake.
Is that a grind tournament?
It's gonna be a grinder.
Like not a.
It's gonna fish so small.
But it's like a power fishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think scope will play a lot. You might see it play a little bit at that time of year on bedded fish or something, but I don't see that being the main deal.
Okay. And then
it's going to be a boat number bingo too.
Really?
A couple of spots, and that's going to be a tough tournament. Probably a little bit like Chesapeake. Just going to be an absolute grind. So that's a tough schedule. I like Division 2 better, but I love the schedule.
Is there one on Chesapeake?
Upper Chesapeake?
Upper Chesapeake.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that Pete Glusick fell in the Open a couple years ago. Yeah. I wasn't there when he fell in because I was the third day, but he set up 25 yards for me. I have buddies with him. He's like, "What's up, Matt?" I'm like, "What's going on, Pete?" And I watched him catch 16 pounds on 5 casts.
That's about right.
And then afterwards, he goes, "Man," he goes, "that was so lucky." He goes, "I wanted to be exactly where you were sitting. I don't know why they moved over there."
Did you say, "No, it's unlucky for me, not lucky for you"? Yeah.
Oh, that was a jammer. I had a co-angler who zeroed the first day. Super nice guy. I still talk to him to this day. He's like, "Man, my wife wanted me to just pack up and go home." And he's like, I gotta cross the stage. And I like power pull down for like 8 hours. I'm not kidding. I had like one spot. I was going to run like 180 when it was windy. I didn't. He had
it's a tidal fishery, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh wait, I don't know. I understand it enough to be dangerous, but not competent.
I haven't dealt with one of those yet, so that'll be a first for me.
This gentleman had 2 bites. So we set up on the very first spot of the day. And he catches a 5.5 on a Ned, just right next to the boat, not even casting in front. Just, oh my God, I've got one. Gets it in, goes 8 hours without a bite. I make one pass down a seawall before we have to go in, and he catches a 6. He had big bass. He top 10 the tournament, and he went from 0 to a top 10 with big bass and 2 freaking bites. He had like 2 for 11. It was fantastic. I mean, fish that I would never caught him.
Right. Yeah,
that's what I'm going to kind of miss for the co-anglers. I made some really good friends with the co-angler. And I think, if Bass takes any flack on this, that's on the co-anglers. There's a lack of participation there. And you can say that was, I know they said it was COVID in their press release. That's 100% because of the forward-facing sonar. Mm-hmm. I'll understand. It totally changed the game. I get it. There's a lot of reasons that make it tougher, but go watch Nico, who just won the Angler of the Year, fishing out of the back of the boat. He fished with me, fished with Austin. I know you know who he is. He's been in the boat with you.
He's so good.
Dude, that guy caught the hell out of him behind guys who were scoping.
Yeah. So a quick story on the Logan Martin deal. He wins at Logan.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, I'm going to call it a secondary home lake. Gunners was really my home lake, but because I was so close, everybody considered home lake. And we talked about flipping a certain bait. I won't mention on air, but we talked about flipping a certain bait. And that's all I did. And I lost some fish on day 2. And I see Nico standing up there. And I said, "You got him?" He's like, you can tell. He's like, "Yeah, I got him." He's like, I caught one over 6 on that same bait I'm telling you, that place has been a gar hole. I've never caught a good fish out of the area. And it was
he with James that day?
No, that was day 1.
Oh, because he caught a giant spot off of a dock that James had just flipped 6 times on day 1.
There's a specific bait for that lake that normally, gets bit more, but watching him be able to, because he's practicing with Austin, he's been in a boat with me, and Austin and I talking, he knew. And watching him be able to put it to work as a co-angler and just wreck them. And I mean, and where he caught the big fish was eyesight of the boat ramp. And I can't tell you, I've never caught a fish out of there. And he's
dude,
like,
he just had a year. Like I said, he was with me at 15 on 3 out of the back of my boat on Santee and didn't do it. He never cast within a half mile of where I was going to fish.
He's a great co-angler.
He'd catch one off the little sticks and he'd be like, "Okay, I won't fish those anymore." And I'm like, "Well, I was fishing the big trees." He's like, "But they're on the little." Then I'd fish the little sticks and then he'd catch one off the big trees. And then he'd go, "Well, I just won't fish any trees at all. I'll just cast out." And I'm like, "No, there's trees everywhere." And then he'd still cast out in the middle, catch another.
Still catch one. Yeah. That's what he says.
He's like, "Well, there's random hard spots out here and you just got to kind of find them with the." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." You know, it's bad when they offer you their bait.
Oh, I know. Here, cut it off. Give it to you. That's a bad day right there. That's a bad day.
I'm good, Nico.
I'm with you on the co-angler thing, though. That is definitely co-angler. That's not on bass.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing because, like what you're saying, I've got a lot of friends I've made that I still talk to today that are co-anglers. And the social networking that we do, even when somebody's in the boat with you, the talking and the communication down the line to have that not be part of it anymore is.
And it's different if it's a 200 boat field and there's 150 co-anglers than if it's a 200 boat field and there's 45 co-anglers. That is a drastic difference, both in helping boaters and hurting boaters.
I mean, and you're right. It's on the co-anglers, and it is 1,000%. It's not COVID. It's the scope. Yeah, it is 100% live. And I watch guys catching behind me when I'm scoping. It's not like it can't be done.
Mm-hmm. But it's not, I mean, dude, it's full field in Division 2. I mean, we're starting out
Full up.
full up.
Is Division 1 full? I
Don't think it's as full as Division 2.
Everybody I see posting is talking about Division 2.
Yeah.
Division 2. And I look, Rayburn, Kentucky, like Norfolk, Leach. I mean, that's a good schedule, man.
It really is.
That's a good schedule. Division 1, I look at it and I'm like, why am I choosing this? But it's because it's proximity to the house.
Yeah.
And look, you and I talked off air. It changes whenever you're not fishing 9.
Yep.
When you have the choice of only have to be in the top 50 after 4, changes your mindset.
I like that. I like the way they did that. Now it's a little tricky sponsorship wise, being like, hey, this is how much it costs to fit. And then there might be an additional $10,000 in entry fees on the back end. And you might be fishing against 20 Elite Series guys here. And like I said, it's not a perfect system.
I don't know if there is a utopia, though.
No.
There's not. And I can tell you, as I sit here, if it had been 9 after the mental,
I wasn't doing it.
I don't know if I could have done it.
I had already decided that I was not going to fish the EQs this year.
Yeah.
And then they came out with the 4 based on where they were, how early it is in the year. We've got a February, March, early April. Then we have 6 months off with Leach in August. Like,
yeah.
I was done because I was comfortable being done because I have other projects that I want to work on in my life.
Yeah. And I honestly, I was so mentally beat up after Martin.
Oh, you had to come back though.
And
you can't finish 10th one year and then not come back the next year. You'll be like running through walls when the season started if you hadn't signed up.
When people ask you, oh, you're doing it again, right? And I'm like, guys, I need time to process this. You know, because you get so close and it wasn't a goal and then it was a goal and then you get close and you mess it up. And so I'm glad that they went to the 4. The 4 was easier for me to look at and go, okay, I got one in January. I got one in, April. And then like you said, then you've got some time off and then they go back to back with Upper Chesapeake and St. Lawrence.
Yep.
So, and I'm excited about that last one.
All right. You got to get on the road. Really appreciate you making the drive to Shawnee, USA, Oklahoma in the bitter cold to jump on BTL. Thoroughly enjoyed
it's better
it.
Being in the cold.
Where can people follow, watch, listen to all of Matt Adams stuff?
Got a YouTube channel, Matt Adams Fishing. It's pretty simple. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with Instagram. It's all Matt Adams Fishing. So I will be doing a lot of content, getting on Gunnersville coming up, and then transition into the open season.
And then guiding wise, is that active going? If people want to jump on the boat with you or your people, talk about where they can get that.
They can go to mmafishing.com or, hit me up on one of the social media channels. And like we mentioned, I'd rather do the crappie fishing, but if you're a bass guy, I'll be glad to take you bass fishing too, but I'm not taking it any of my stuff that I fish in tournament.
There you go.
Straight up.
Matt Adams, thanks for jumping on BTL. We're back tomorrow, Thursday. Uncle Frank Scalish is in the house for the first show of 2025. And then Friday, kick things off with the first episode of Guide Day. Jimmy Easterling recorded that. It's really a cool show talking about the big 3 fisheries around the Hot Springs area, Washita, Hamilton, and DeGray. Really cool story with him. He was in education, 12 years. He was a math teacher, which is kind of sadistic. Like, he majored in math and really enjoys just doing math in his spare time. And he, started guiding, got into it. And then one of his clients popped up like a 12.5 at the beginning of last year out of DeGray. To the moon.
Yeah, I know that.
So
high.
All right. Thanks, guys. Like I said, if you're in for some bonus editions of Crappie Talk Live at the end of this year, these shows don't just pop up. Shoot an email to matt@basszone.com. Talk about what you want to see, how you want to see it done. I'm talking on the water, instruction, crappie stuff to the max.
Crappie heads too, baby.
Yeah, you get to a certain age where you just do what you enjoy doing. Exactly. You know what I mean? Not what you think you have to do or what you want. And I'm like, you know what? I would really enjoy like 10 episodes next fall once the season is over of going, hey, I'm crappie fishing with a purpose.
That's right.
So, all right, we'll talk to everyone later. See ya.